Hey, good morning, everyone. Morning. It is Friday, August 25th. So this is the Jackson Hole Symposium today. This is what everyone's pretty much been waiting for. Investors, everyone's looking at Wyoming, and it's not necessarily anything else but for the Jackson Hole. So this is annually hosted by the Kansas City Fed, and it started yesterday. While Jerome Powell is going to take stage today at 10:05 a.m. And the theme of the 2023 conference is titled "Structural Shifts in the Global Economy," which will likely explore whether the U.S. will return to pre-pandemic low interest rate environments or a higher for longer attitude will prevail. So yesterday we saw that pretty much the whole move to the upside was erased and then some that happened on the prior day. And a lot of people are looking at this thinking it's a preemptive downside movement into the Jackson Hole Symposium, which realistically I wouldn't necessarily say would be the case. I think this is more of a weak-handed shakeout before we get some potential legs to the upside. We're already up about 24 points from the lows on the overnight session. And right now, obviously, a lot can change, tides can shift, and it's going to be very important to have a news service that will give you some kind of real-time data like Financial Juice, News Squawk, so on and so forth. So we're going to see if we're hawkish or dovish and what the bigger picture will be. So, nervousness going into the summit appears to be drawing down any market optimism after NVIDIA's blowout earnings. And some traders still have flashbacks of last year's Jackson Hole, which the market dropped about like 3 to 4% in a single day after Jerome Powell shot down any hopes that the Fed would telegraph a pivot on its aggressive policy tightening. So, restoring price stability will take some time and likely to require a sustained period of below trend growth and softer labor market conditions. That's what he said at the time. Adding to the road ahead would be or bring some pain to households and businesses. So the interesting thing is that the economic growth has shockingly expanded at an impressive rate since that speech, while the unemployment rate has stuck to record lows. Only a month after Jerome Powell spoke in 2022, the S&P reached bear market lows, and while stocks hit the August blues in the recent weeks, its benchmark index has pretty much been on the rise since climbing a total of 22%. So, recession warnings have also been supplemented by a soft landing talk. And though there is still plenty to be cautious about, with Treasury yields hitting fresh highs and regional banks suggesting risk to the downside, the S&P flashing a correction signal has not been seen since the early 2000s. So, back at the Jackson Hole 2020, Powell unveiled a policy of flexible average inflation targeting, which basically stated that the central bank would accept higher inflation to allow for a quicker labor market recovery from the pandemic as price pressures spiraled out of control in 2021. And the Fed doubled down on its infamous transitory call before making a serious U turn that led to aggressive tightening cycle again. So a technical recession ensued in the first half of 2022, but the U.S. economy has since been resilient, and with quarterly GDP recently growing nearly at a full percentage point stronger than expected, the Atlanta Fed's GDP Now model forecasts a whopping 5.3% expansion for Q3, and things could have also turned out differently for the economy with a different set of policies, but more structural shifts in the making. So this is the main focus on today. We're going to see how that does shape up realistically. Everyone's going to be watching this, traders, investors alike. A lot can change based on what is going on with Jay Powell. And from that, I would say that tread with a little more caution. I could see that into that meeting, we could probably see a little more upside, but anything can change. If we go higher for longer, right, it's probably going to be a little more bearish realistically. If it takes a super dovish tone, honestly, 4,600 on tap in the next few weeks realistically before we see a pullback into October. But this is going to be a pretty make or break overall day for the coming few weeks, in my opinion, in the market. We also have some other news that's not super relevant to what is going on. This is going to be the driving force and the leader of the news on the day. But Disney yesterday, investors are kind of going against Disney as concerns over CEO Bob Iger's turnaround plan, with the stock dropping 4% yesterday to mark the lowest level since October 2014. So KeyBank's Brandon Nispel believes that the stock is still expensive relative to its peers, given challenges across just about every one of its businesses. So Disney, which has fallen 17% since Iger's return last year, is in the midst of revamping that includes streaming price hikes, more ads, and cost cuts. Investing group leader Tech Stock Pros warn that Disney's comeback story will take longer. Although JNR Research also believes that the market has been overly pessimistic given Disney's high quality asset base. So that's one of the names that kind of has been absolutely just dumping recently. If I take a look at what Nvidia has been up to, let's see here. Nvidia opened up at a new all-time high yesterday, just bled literally all of the day. It's down a little pre-market here after opening up at about 501. A lot of Nvidia bears, right? They're taking these little baby wins after prices pretty much settling at a prior all-time high yesterday. It's one of the most hated rallies realistically in names, and if the market hadn't really tumbled too much yesterday, I feel like Nvidia would have just kept continuing in that leg up. In terms of news, like I said today, Jerome Powell does start talking about 10. He's usually late. We also have Fed's Lagarde, right? The EU Central Bank Lagarde structural shifts in the global economy, but all eyes are going to be on the Jackson Hole Symposium today, what Jerome Powell has to say, and the movement from that. So, trade plan for the day on the ES S&P 100 futures. We just broke out of a smaller distribution to the downside, 43.93-ish. That area would have to sustain as a support low if we pull back here pre-market to see that continuation to the upside. We have a key order flow area at 44.10. That's been traded a lot recently, and if we can leapfrog back above that, we really start accepting into a distribution higher, where targets would be into that 44, like mid 30s, and then we could potentially see a leg back into that 44, 55, 60 region. Yesterday, we failed pretty aggressively throughout the whole day, very bearish day. We were lucky to be on the trend early on, right? We're lucky to have spotted it, I'd say, like based on what we were looking at. So we kept eyes on the downside opened up. And today I could only see the downside if we start breaking like 75 realistically, 43.75. That area, if it gets destroyed, right, there could be a lot more to the downside before we see any kind of relief rally. And if it's going to be a downside day based on Jerome Powell and the Fed, it is going to be a big one, I think. So let's see what they say. If they're dovish or hawkish, we'll kind of navigate that. But there are a few levels that you do need to watch. Again, we're going to be opening our live trading room next week for the full week for you guys, talking about order flow and whatnot afterwards, after the session. Today, we're going to be trading the Jackson Hole live with our team. Going to be opening up the trading room in just a bit and keeping it open for quite some time today to see what we can get out of this news, right? It's going to be a very good opportunity, in my opinion. And I think it's not something that we should necessarily miss, right? The last few days have been really good, and let's keep this trend going. Ideally, there's some very solid movement, which I think would be the case realistically. Can I show a visual representation of what? Not necessarily sure what you're talking about, chat. PCAT. I'm not back in Bulgaria. My dad was just walking around. I'm in Toronto. I was like, please don't be in your underwear. So my place, I'm renting my place out. I'm just back in Bulgaria back in Toronto for like a month and a half. I got a wedding and whatnot to go to. So hope everyone has a great day. And we'll do this again next week. Enjoy the weekend. Remember, be diligent throughout the Jackson Hole. Don't be so aggressive. There's going to be opportunity, but that doesn't mean you have to have 7,000 trades a day. So thank you, everyone, and I'll see you guys next time.